No, 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 no.
Hello?
Yeah, hi, Theo, Paul here.
Yes, how are you, Paul?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I'm waiting for the other villains to come on.
It's a very ungodly hour here.
Yeah. You're very brave. You're very brave.
Yes,
We had
I
Julie
didn't.
Reaver.
Yes.
She was going. She said, "No, I'm not doing this hour. What are you crazy? Um,
Yeah.
where are you
I didn't
living?
know. I live in the neighborhood of Washington, D.C.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really know that between New Zealand and here, it's 17 hours, right? I thought at least it was something like 13, like Singapore or something like
Oh, yeah, no,
that.
no. We are hidden at the bottom of the world, and we're very happy about it.
Yes.
Yes.
I hope the tariffs are not going to affect you. Are
Yeah,
they?
well, the tariffs will. I think he's whacked us with 10% or something like that. He's
Okay.
claiming we have tariffs on America of 20%, which is not just fiction, but he just makes stuff up.
Yeah.
He's a funny
It's a
dude.
very it's a very interesting world.
Yeah, yeah, very dangerous, I think. Well, you've seen part of the one of the dangerous edges of it,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's going to get a lot more edgy, I would think. Not that I'm an
I
expert.
was before today I was looking at a bit of the history of the Fabian society and I
Do
saw that
you?
it was at the end of the 19th century and
Yep.
the types of things that are happening today here
Yeah.
are very they should have been at the end of the 19th century, not today in the 21st.
They were a very interesting bunch of socialists who didn't believe in revolution
Yeah.
and believed in the welfare state. So a lot of New Zealand's welfare systems were designed, our education systems and our health system, and were designed by Fabians. Um,
Really?
so
Yeah, I saw. I
yeah,
was pleasantly surprised that they are behind the establishment of the London School of Economics.
yep, LSE.
Yeah, yeah.
They're an interesting bunch. We're slightly different from the English and the Australian in that we don't formally align ourselves with the Labour Party.
Yes, and you are very much aligned to the Labour Party, if
Yeah.
not at the foundation of it.
Yes. Um,
Hmm.
yes, they were very, very influential. Sydney and Beatrice Webb, Sydney Webb came to New Zealand in 1893, and we enacted the first legislation
Hmm.
for pro-unions, pro-workers in 1893. So we had the Arbitration and Conciliation Act of 1893, which was
Hmm.
very progressive. And we're currently under attack from the similar, well, currently under attack from your Heritage Foundation and its friends.
Yes, yes.
And so, it's being whittled away slowly as they attack the health system and the education system, and they try and reduce taxes so that people can be free, all that sort of ideological nonsense that they preach.
Yes.
But we are strongly invested in the Labor Party, but we also have Green Party members who are in our senior part of our executive. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so we're pretty open to basically anyone that wants to put their hand up and help out. And we tend to just run seminars like this, And we
Yes,
haven't
yes.
we haven't got into full-time white paper writing, although we're thinking about that. We haven't got into lobbying as a organizational unit. So we may, there is pressure on us here to become a little bit more active. But, we ran 24 seminars last year. And we've got a very good support team of Africans. So
Oh, really?
our executive, we've got Red Zonga coming on from, where is he from? Yeah, I think he's from Kenya.
Okay.
Maybe, no, he's from the Congo.
Oh, from Congo.
Yeah, Democratic Republic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But we have, another couple of Kenyans. And the Joseph, who is been instrumental in getting these seminars and getting people like yourself to come and talk, has been, very active and is trying to, push the agenda of open up and show us what you're doing, Mr. Kagame, along. We have an interesting, the Secretary of the Commonwealth. So the British, you may know this, the British Commonwealth.
Yes.
Yeah, had a general secretary called Don McKinnon, and Don was he was a deputy prime minister here, a very equitable, equanimous, nice sort of guy. His wife is Claire Delors, and she is very, very pro Kagame.
Yeah, you come across one time,
Yeah.
not to interrupt you, I once had almost on BBC, a very interesting conversation when Mrs. Blair, Tony Blair, his wife was one of the spy chief, Kagame's spy chief was arrested in London some years ago. And I was on BBC simply saying that the British government had done the right thing to do that, and Mrs. Blair was saying no, this is an innocent man. And I asked her, how much do you know of this spy chief?
Yeah. Well,
So we have all these the conservative government in Britain have been very close to Kagame, but even the likes of Tony Blair, who is from the Labour establishment, is so close to Kagame that he once described him as the most visionary leader he has ever come across. That was quite interesting.
It's sort of anyway. It's even a cursory reading would make you want to read a little bit more about.
Yes.
What on earth is this guy about, and how flipping dangerous he is. But I'm just going to follow up on my two colleagues because I have to go. I am running my brother-in-law's vigil. I don't know if you know Catholicism.
Yeah. I saw that. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah. He was happy to go, believe me.
Yes.
Had long-term cancer, and it was slowly draining him. Really, that's what happened in the end. I'll just check these guys. Have where are we? No. And I'll just go offline for a second and
Okay, no problem.
You're looking good. Do you want to just come round, square yourself to the camera a little bit? In other words, yeah, perfect. Oh,
Like this?
yeah, Premiere.
Okay.
Look, you got good lighting and everything. Everything is good. Okay. Where is the Zoom link? This is people who do not prepare.
Yes.
Yeah,
It took me time also to,
Yeah, I'll just look on my phone. Turn myself off a bit. Oh, got red here. There we go. We've got red coming in. Hello, red. You have to unmute. Hello, red. This is what's worrying me about both of them. I don't think they know. Red. The unmute button is on the left.
Isn't there where you can unmute him as the host? No?
Yeah, now I've just made him the host, unfortunately, which is
okay.
Which I shouldn't have. I should have just done and unmuted him. Here he comes. There he is. His picture's good.
Hey, how are you?
Oh, you're looking handsome. You're looking good.
Yeah, he's talking
Thank
to you.
you.
Yeah, he's talking to you.
Looking very good and very professional. Hello, Dr.
Yes.
Theogene.
Hey,
How are
yeah.
you? You're the guy
Rudaswinga,
from
good,
Congo?
thank you. How are you?
He's the guy
Are
from
you the
Congo.
guy from Congo?
Yes, I'm the one from Congo.
I hope we don't end up punching each other
Oh,
online.
no, it's too far.
It's too far.
I'm going to shut.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Paul.
Oh, Paul muted himself.
I've unmuted and I'm just going off I'm going to leave this on. I'm going to turn my camera off and my sound off. And Red, I'll come back in about 20 minutes to make sure you've figured out. You are the host at the moment. In other words, at the bottom of the screen, when you see somebody come in like Joseph, you admit them under participants. Currently, you'll see 3. Make sense?
Is Joseph coming?
Joseph is coming, I hope.
Right. I don't have the information. Where's the
Talk to Joseph. I am leaving. He will. I'll come back in a few minutes if he's not here.
What about the story you sent, Paul?
He went off again, I think.
Oh yeah, it went off. No, basically. Okay.
Sorry, did I send a story?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find. Yeah, where did you send it?
If you're talking about New Zealand Fabian Society, it's under New Zealand Fabian Society.
Okay, we didn't have a biography from Joseph.
Did we have one? I think we did. Be a second.
So what's the title of this speech?
This is to be honest, this is not a speech. This is my preference, and this is my style really. It's not specific for this evening. I prefer to off the cuff say a few things on the subject of of Rwanda and Congo, because that's really the subject. And then open it for question and answers and discussion. That's all.
Okay. Yeah,
I
so
have no prepared text. I have no prepared text.
yeah. No, I was just asking from the organizers because they would have had a title. Paul, what did you title this meeting?
I'll send this to you. It's already been sent to you. It's under
Is it General Kagame's last gamble? War, deception, and
no,
Iraq?
Oh, did you? That was my last
That's
write-up.
your last writing. Okay.
that was
Yeah.
updates from Rwanda and the Congo.
Yeah.
So you
Updates?
updates from, here it comes in the email.
Okay.
So once you've got that, have a look at it and talk over with Theo about what your line is going to be, how you're going to manage it. Okay, I've got to go.
Updates from Rwanda and the Congo, yeah. The recent attacks in Congo, Rwanda, yeah. All right, I have it. And yeah.
So where are you from? Reed?
Take a guess.
Yeah, are you from Kivu? Are you from Bukavu or Goma?
I'm from Brazzaville.
Oh, Congo Brazzaville.
Yes.
Oh, that's your home country, not Congo Kinshasa, as we used to call it.
Not Congo Kinshasa, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's amazing to see how somehow your country has remained cushioned from the ravages of conflict that have wrecked our countries.
Absolutely.
What is the trick? What have you been able to do right that we are missing?
Where in Congo Brazzaville?
Yes.
I think Congo Brazzaville is just it's also a dictatorship and it's been crushed. Some uprising or revolution has been crushed. So I think also just silencing of political oppositions and also corruption, bringing some people on. I think there's a government where they brought also some opposition, but they corrupted as well, maybe bribed. I think that's why there hasn't been, and there hasn't been anyone with the kind of like strength or might to lead a rebellion, frankly. And many people left, and those who are left, they don't have the resources, they don't have foreign support. I think that's one of the reasons why there's been this kind of like quiet stability, but it's the country's actually in a mess. It's not good.
I once, about almost 30 years ago, I was a special envoy from President Kagame, and I went to see the then president of Gabon, Omar Bongo.
Omar Bongo, okay.
Yes. And then from there, I flew to Congo Brazzaville, and I met your president. Yeah, quite an interesting guy. He looks very calm and collected, and he's a survivor, I guess.
No, more like he's a dictator.
No, I mean a surviving dictator. I don't know how he has been able to do it, to keep a dictator who's been able to rule for that long, and yet there's no rebellion in his country.
Yeah, because he has had the support of France. I think France supported him to come in there. And since then, it hasn't changed at all because quite luckily, I also did my research for my master's degree on the conflict of 1997, which is a result of why he's in power today. And the findings were that the underlying factor were mainly France and the multinationals were looking for stability of a stability guarantee for these companies in terms of like prices for petrol. So they didn't want, like, every time there's a government that comes in, there are changes or reviews of these contracts. So the stability in terms of like contracts, and because these contracts have never been reviewed since 1960s. So in 1990, 1993 when the new president came in, and it was the first democratic election held in Congo, which saw a change in power. He was a president then, so he was therefore removed. And when the new president came in, he didn't want to be part of that unity government because he wasn't given certain strategic key positions that he wanted, actually. So he refused to be part of that government. So he went to live in France. And then the year he came back in 1996, 97, that's when trouble started happening in Congo. So he had the backing. So before that, he actually asked for a review of those contracts, the multinational contracts, which were mainly French companies everywhere when it comes to petrol, mining. So the France supported him and financed his war and his militia group as well, and led to the conflict. Therefore, he won. And actually, even the day he won, the French national TV went to interview him in his region where he was actually residing the day of the conflict. And that's where he was. No, Saban. And so that's the reason why he's been there. So it's I think, and there hasn't been also,
know.
Yeah, there hasn't been also a strong opposition that could stand up to it as well, with the resources to wage a war or a resistance. So some of these resistance were also corrupted. So there was a guy called Kolela. He's from the south of the country. He was one of the leaders. And some of these leaders also were brought into the government as well. And then later they were killed. And some were also imprisoned.
That sounds like Rwanda.
Rwanda. It's the same like Rwanda. And quite frankly, I watched one of his interview. He was talking about that peace. They asked him the question about Rwanda and Congo, whether the peace is possible. And one of his answers was just astonishing. Like I found it.
What did he say?
Quite strange. I think he said,
because they have become very good friends.
Yes, they are.
And he even gave him a lot of land. Imagine, that's Congolese land. He gave him like 12 square miles of land, something like that.
In the southern part of the Congo. And even in that southern part, it's a part which is a threat to him. So that's the reason why it's a strategy.
He gave him that land.
Yeah, he gave him that land. So that area will always be an area which could be contested. So if there's anything that could rise up there will be Rwandan maybe presence or military presence there, or ethnic group there. So it's a strategic, it's really, because it's a southern part, south of the Congo, and the ethnic groups who are there, it's called Nibolek. Nibolek means it's a region, Niari, Bwenza, Lekumu. Those three regions of the south. And those three regions of the south are mainly, that's where the opposition comes from.
Is that area would be bordering DRC?
Some areas of it border DRC. Yeah.
Okay.
Some area of it border DRC.
And I believe also probably Kagame would want, given his ambitions for expansionist ambitions, maybe anything that is, he has always been thinking of something that would encircle DRC. I'm sure the fact that he got that piece of land is a signal that he also wants to be very friendly with Congo, so that should be there, a conflict, an all-out conflict. Then he would be having a presence maybe from that part. I'm just speculating. I don't know whether that's his intention, but that's how I read his mind.
It could be possible. Of course, those land apparently for agriculture given to Rwanda, it's strategic. because there's no need for Rwandan to have land there to develop, to do agriculture. Congolese people can do agriculture there in those
Yes.
right?
Yes. But even I was wondering, was that free land? Where did he get that land from?
Yeah, no, apparently they wanted to buy. So they wanted to buy the land. It's not free land, but it's strategic. And by leasing the land, it's a strategic move just to have Rwandan presence there. And therefore, if Rwandan presence in agriculture there, therefore they could also multiply and populate the area, right? So when they populate the area, they can become an influence into influencing the outcome of an election, or again of anything that can be risen in the region, or again like just providing security or guarantee because of Rwandan interest in the area.
I don't know how far Kagame is with that project, but I knew that they were sending there like demobilized soldiers, people who work for Rwanda's intelligence, people within the party, Kagame's party, RPF. Those were the people. Naturally, when an opportunity like that one comes, he wants to make sure that the people who go either for the business or for any other reason are people who are loyal to him, because everything that Kagame does, like your president, it's always calculated to maintain his power. So most of the people whom they have, who I remember, even they started having a flight from Rwanda to Congo to Brazzaville, and I always ask myself, what kind of transactions are there? What kind of business is between Kigali and Brazzaville? What kind of trade is in between? But most of it is really run by the security operatives. Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's not surprising.
So what was your president's answer to that question?
I think the answer was something like, he was something like, I think he was trying to say something about the African Union, to have an input that it's possible, which totally wasn't a good answer. I can't quite remember now.
Oh, I think I've recorrected. I think he was like saying, because Congo.
So it's two states there, so I need to more one.
Yeah. No, wait there. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I think he was saying about sanctions, because I have been calling for sanctions.
Yes.
And he was saying that sanctions don't work.
Yes.
That we should leave this to Africa. When you are still very young, I was there in the troubles of Rwanda in the 90s. But as myself, I have done research, I've written extensively. I do not remember anywhere where the African Union has been able to resolve any conflict. I don't know. So for him to say, "Ngo, let's leave it," it's like, it's a slogan amongst the Africans. They say, "Oh, African problems, African solutions by Africans." But that's a joke. That's a joke. I don't believe that's the case.
Yeah. And to me, it seems like he was just defending.
He was defending Kagame.
Yeah, Kagame.
It was Joseph, you are on mute. You're on mute. Hey, Amakuru.
Much better. Amakuru ni meza.
Yes.
Komera.
That's I can see you have a lot of gray hair. Mine have cut it.
You fell on a lawnmower. Yeah.
Yes. I brought a lawnmower to clear my gray hairs.
Yeah. We are in that way indeed. Yeah. So
No,
how are you in
we
US?
are good. I was talking to my brother. We're comparing notes on how Congo Brazzaville has become very friendly to Rwanda, to Kagame, and how his president has given land or bought like sold land. I don't know what conditions, but so they have become very good friends. You know,
Yes,
the English saying is that birds of the same feather flock together.
yeah.
Mm.
But Kagame, I think, has acquired a lot of land around Congo, in neighboring Congo, things like that, like Brazzaville, Chad, I think, probably Central African Republic, and so far. So, and some people just think like he's like a new neo-colonial person colonizing in somehow part of the countries. Is it like a strategy for the Congo to be surrounding the Congo, suffocate Congo, or do you think it is like a crazy mind of Paul Kagame wanting to be the new Africa leader?
It's Kagame is actually not crazy. He's very deliberate in things he does. Only that, as I wrote in my last write-up, Kagame like a gambler.
Yeah.
He doesn't know that he has overextended himself, that at the end of the day, he's a small man who runs a very small country. So even if he may have that kind of wishful thinking that he can do whatever he wants in Africa, it's because even when you look at how he came to be in those countries, it's mainly the West that have been paying his bills in order to be in Central Africa, to be in Mozambique. The European Union pays him to be in the Sudan. The United Nations, pays for him to be in Mali before it collapsed. That was the United Nations. So in a way, Kagame has forgotten deliberately, either forgotten or simply ignores the fact that he's actually a creation of the West. The Kagame that is, although the West was, you know our history of RPF, we used to be rapidly against the West because we used to think that as a Tutsi who grew up in exile for 30 years, we used to say, oh, the West does not like our Tutsi. It does not. That was the common saying even amongst our parents. They say, oh, abazungu ntabwo badukunda. The whites don't like our Tutsi. That's how we used to say it. But of course, what we didn't know, maybe we're still young and very naive, is that the West does not like anybody, it likes itself. If they get somebody to use, like my brother here was explaining to me that Sassou Nguesso was put there by the French. So he has to do the bidding of the French. And the French are there not because they love Sassou Nguesso, but because they love the natural wealth, the business they do in Congo. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
so Kagame himself, yes, Kagame himself was a creator. After 94, I think the West, especially the United States and the United Kingdom, realized that they had a very good friend in Kagame who could do their bidding. And so that's how Kagame has become the Kagame that we know today. He wishes he could punch as far and as hard everywhere he wants, but he has very serious limitations, especially if the West decides that what they used to get from him, they can directly get it from Congo. What will Kagame do? Yeah. Instead of going through a middleman, you might decide that you're going to, like the French decided, they will go directly to Congo and talk to Nguesso, and Nguesso will do what they want. And I think time is coming when the West may decide that they want to deal directly with Congo and simply ignore Kagame. But he still has that army that he uses to destabilize, and so he creates value through violence. He say, if you don't talk to me, then I'll be very disruptive. It's like blackmail. It's blackmail.
If you want to sanction me, I will pull my troop out of UN. That is like a threat that he gave to everyone.
Yes, that's what he does.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I heard Mikela wrong the other day. She was with other panelists and saying that the West have created a monster, and it will be harder to get rid of the monster, because now Kagame, he doesn't listen to anyone. That's the problem. They have put him on the podium, and he believed too much in himself. And now he doesn't even listen to the one who put him in a podium. So we wait and see what's going to happen really in the next.
Actually, I would say, because I've worked very close to Kagame, probably amongst people outside there and inside the country, I would claim that I understand Kagame's logic than anybody else. Because as you know, I've worked very, very closely with him. And Kagame, surprisingly, if there was pressure, because until now, actually, nobody has pressurized Kagame sufficiently. The West, you have seen, especially in these last several weeks, the United States will say, oh, Kabarebe, we're sanctioning. Then the Security Council will say this and that. Then the UK, then they will say they will summon an ambassador. But Kagame is actually tempting them to see how far they can go. Apparently, up to now, my argument is that nobody has sufficiently pressurized Kagame. Because Kagame, unless he has become extremely foolish by now, I can remember times when we would have pressure and we would quickly have to figure out how to maneuver out of that kind of situation without losing face. But now the stakes are very high, especially for Congo, because Kagame has gotten so used to the wealth of Congo that I do not see how we can simply withdraw from Congo unless he realized that the pressure is so much and that the West is about to do something that they have not done so far. And that pressure has not come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it will take time for the West to do some more bigger sanction because Kagame is trying to delay, and the West also have put too much. I don't say trust, but they have put too much in Kagame, and then just to withdraw straight away, it is quite hard. And he still quite have some support. I saw Tony Blair was in Kigali the other week. I'm not sure. I don't know what they have talked about.
He's advising him. I'm sure he's advising him how to deal with the West. That's all.
That's all,
Yeah.
And he knows the West, what they think.
He was a prime minister, so
he was a prime minister, so he knows. So he still have quite a good support, Paul Kagame. So it's just a playing chess of game.
Yeah, and the world situation is very chaotic right now, and Kagame knows that the world is distracted, especially from the actions of President Trump. So the world, we are in a very, very delicate global situation. That the attention is far away from the likes of Rwanda and Congo and Africa, and we're on the periphery. We are not on the minds of the big players on the global scene. And when that happens, the likes of Kagame survive. unfortunately. The only thing that would change the equation is if there was real organization and resistance from Congo, real resistance from Rwanda. But for now, Kagame still has a breathing space.
I think he have taken advantage of the weakness of the Congo and the Rwandan muzzled. So and Burundi very weak. So it is a very the right time for him to do whatever he want to do in that
area. Uganda is on his side and on the other side. So you can't know some the kind of game that Museveni and his son. But his son has said it very clearly, though.
Oh yes, his son have made it clear.
He's very clear. His son is very clear. The father is ambivalent because he's an opportunist. He has been in power for 40 years, so he knows how to play it on one side and on the other side. But his son has said he's a Hima, and with his brothers, the Tutsis in Rwanda, he wants to create that Hima Tutsi empire in the region. So he's very clear.
He's very clear, and he plays on a kind of a stupidity or something like that, like a clown, and people don't.
Yes.
I'll be back in a minute. Just give me a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. So he. And the only thing for me I was thinking is like a few years ago in the 70s when Tanzania made a clear spot to Uganda, say, Idi Amin, enough is enough. And so that is probably my view. When, for example, if Kagame attack Burundi, which he might do, and Tanzania say, if Kagame attack Burundi, we are attacking Rwanda, that is the only way the West will wake up and realize things are serious. But I don't know the relationship with Burundi and Tanzania or Congo, how Tanzania can come in, because that is the only country that has not been involved in those altercation with Rwanda or Burundi, things that has been neutral. So, and I think that is probably when the West and the whole Africa maybe, which probably so the West will wake up, say, if Tanzania says so, things are so serious. That's it.
Problem. Buriya Tanzania yarahindutse. The Tanzania of Mwalimu is not the Tanzania of today.
Oh, okay, yes.
Because Mwalimu was intensely a very able leader and very decisive. And he was, he had a moral compass. He knew that Idi Amin was a bad person for Uganda, for East Africa, and for Africa. And he was somebody who was very intensely ideological. He saw that even when Africans are poor people, they can also be proud of who they are and they should fight for their rights. I have been shocked, very, very much shocked, if you've been reading my writings in these last few weeks, really to see that South Africa and Tanzania could have been humiliated in Congo the way they were humiliated by Rwanda. That was really, really, really serious. Are you still there? You look frozen.
Yes, I am still there.
Yeah.
It is quite dark.
Because for South Africa, like the superpower of Africa, and Tanzania, which has a reputation of being a strong nation with a strong army. In fact, its army is the one that has trained both the Ugandan army and the Rwandan army. Within the military Rwanda, Tanzania is held up there, as you know. So for them really to have been thrown out of Congo in that humiliating, and SADC, and then East Africa as a whole, to have been thrown out of Congo, out of Goma, out of Bukavu, and all these things that Kagame is doing, advancing either to take over the whole Congo or take over Sangana and most of the areas of Congo, we shall see in the future. But to me, I saw South Africa and Tanzania being humiliated in that kind of fashion. It was a very big signal that something is not right in South Africa and something is not right in Tanzania.
Oh, yes.
So the idea, I have no illusion whatsoever as of now, that even if Kagame decided to attack Burundi, that Tanzania would commit and say, no, we don't accept that, a member country of East Africa has attacked another member of East Africa. After all, not DRC, a member of East Africa.
Yeah, that's right.
And so these are very hard times because the leadership, all these things are showing weak leadership.
Yeah.
It's weak leadership. And Nyerere was not the type like we have now in East Africa. No, they say, look around East Africa, who would you say that comes close to being, even close actually to being somebody like Nyerere? Nobody. Absolutely nobody.
It is still showing us that the African society, we still run by strong men and not strong institutions.
Yes, so, strong, very dictators.
Dictators in one way or the other. So Nyerere, what he could have decided, it's not what the whole country wanted to decide. It was a one person deciding. So today, so the new president will not have the same decision level of decision. So yeah, Kagame have a chance. Probably he came on the right time or on the wrong time for us. But Congo being so weak for a long time from the 70s, Congo will never be able to stand up again against the Kagame army or even any army.
Yeah, in a way, sometimes history is very interesting. I think sometimes we need to have a very long-term view of history, which is not very interesting because when we are suffering, we always want solutions at least in the short and medium term.
Yes.
Ariko, if you look at the long trajectory of history, I believe that out of that confusion and suffering that the Congolese people have, it's possible, but it will take a lot of energy and a lot of time. I do not know when. Maybe a leader can emerge in Congo that can easily mobilize people to stand up and resist Kagame.
Yeah.
Now, even Tshisekedi, to be honest, has tried. I give him credit. Because if you compare, and by the way, if Laurent Kabila had been, of course, Laurent Kabila, the older one was put there by Kagame and Museveni, especially more by Kagame. But he was kind of a stubborn man. And when he realized that he could not accept Kabarebe to be the one running Congo, essentially, because there was a time when Kabarebe was running Congo. Because he was like a Roman consul in those territories. And so when he tried to resist, that's when the Second Congo War started. And of course, they killed him. His son, Kabila was a creation of Rwanda too, and he feared Kagame, he feared Kabarebe, he knew, I think he knew his limitations. He was not about to rock the boat, so he wanted to play along. But I think Tshisekedi, at least on the diplomatic front, and in terms of articulating in a very clear way that Kagame is the one fomenting these troubles in Congo. He has done much more than anybody else in Congo.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So one could give him a credit for that. Where he fails, it's really in the institutions, because you cannot build institutions in one day. Yes, they trained all these soldiers in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks. You give them Kalashnikovs. But an army is much more than simply numbers and weapons.
They have to train them here.
Yes, the army is here.
Here.
Yes. And I think Congo also has a problem of which we all have in Africa. Sometimes I think when I see Congolese soldiers running away from Rwanda's army and M23, I sometimes wonder whether they have any patriotism of saying, this is my country, Congo. Because often we are tribes and ethnic groups. So you may say, yes, I'm from this region, I'm of this tribe, I'm of this group, and that's where your royalty is and your affiliation is. So the concept of a nation, the national, what many people have called the national consciousness, many African nations will not attain that.
Yep.
Even you can see that's one of the problems that we have in Rwanda. We are a very small nation. We even have the advantage that many other African nations do not have. We speak one language. We've lived on the same hills for centuries. And yet, this whole thing of being Umuhutu, being Umututsi, why is it so strong today than even it was in the past? It is so strong because also people have been killed and have suffered because they are Bahutu. Many people have died and suffered because they are Batutsi. So that has even reinforced it.
Yeah.
It has even reinforced this Hutu-Tutsi identity. And so my question sometimes is, when I see these Congolese soldiers running away, I ask myself, are these people really feeling that this is a country's security at stake, a country's future at stake, and therefore they are willing to fight and die for it? Or rather, if they're in Kivu, they say, but why should I be dying in Kivu when I come from Kinshasa? I don't know. Maybe Congolese people will dedicate me.
Yeah.
But there is no national consciousness. Kandi natwe ubwacu mu Rwanda nta national consciousness dufite.
Ntayo.
That's why we are fighting. Nicyo gituma ni ubona ni ibintu bya opposition byatunaniye.
Yep. Yeah,
unless because a nation is a community. Utaragera kuri stage yo kuvuga ngo my community ni Rwanda, and this is where my life is, this is where my interests are. I'm willing to fight, I'm willing to die, I'm willing to kill, but only for the survival of my community defined as a whole nation. Utaragera kuri your stage, politics izakunaniye.
That's right. Ikibazo kizakomeza kubaho.
Yeah.
Kandi I think we are easy to take the blame to others. Abahutu bati twashatse kubana n'abatutsi bla bla bla, baratunanira. Abatutsi bati twashatse kubana n'abahutu biranga. So tuzakomeza kuzia muri izo roller coaster.
In 94, I really had a very serious segment with my own brother Gahima. I remember we were driving together at the height of when people during genocide in Muriza, maybe May and whatever. And I could see he was visibly really annoyed. He said, really, igihugu cyacu, I think, ngira ngo wagicamo ibice bibiri, abahutu bakava ukwabo, abatutsi bakava Gerard. Umunsi abahutu bagize igihugu cyabo bazakirwaniramo, umunsi abatutsi bahagize igihugu cyabo bazakirwanira.
Yes.
And it's true. None se ubu ngubu ko ubu abantu Kagame yijunditse kurusha abandi si abatutsi bene wabo.
N'abatutsi. That is for sure. That's for sure.
Ubu si twe yijunditse cyane.
That's for sure.
Azi ko aravuga ko abahutu yarabanesheje.
Yeah.
Hari abashoboye gukurura akaza akabahaka mu gihugu bagaca bugufi bagakora ibyo ashaka byose. Ariko ubu ngubu concern yo Kagame, preoccupation Kagame afite muri iki gihe ni abatutsi.
Yeah.
Biriya byo yivugira avuga ngo bya FDLR arabeshya, ni ibintu by'ababeshya gusa, ntabwo ari muri Congo kubera FDLR.
No. He knows. No. He knows we know. He
knows it. Yes.
Yeah, he knows, and he knows that we know, but he keeps telling that. Yeah. Now, yeah, but we can see like umujinya Kagame, sorry, awugirira abatutsi n'umujinya agirira abahutu, it is on different level. It's on a different level. So anyone can see that. Yeah.
Umuhutu ashobora kuvuga ngo yagiye muri opposition ariko akarwaririza agakohereza abantu nguriya muntu muzamuzane, ndetse bakagera aho bakamuzana akaba accommodating n'iki, ariko mbwira which Tutsi, who among the Tutsi who have declared themselves to be in the opposition, whom he has said, oh, come back. No.
Now, he will, he's gonna be, he have to be dead.
Yes.
Come back.
He has said it in his circles. He has said that for Tutsis who rebel against him, don't even come to ask him what to do. He told his officers, intelligence and military officers, you know what to do with these Tutsis who rebel against me.
Yeah.
In short saying, simply kill them.
That's right. That's right. Ibyo rwose turabibona ntuza muri comment muri his way of dealing with abo yita ngo enemy of the country. The country is himself. So
yes. L'état c'est moi, oui.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, you did mention that that the Congolese army, they're not people are not so patriotic. I think it's more than that. People are patriotic. We've seen young people, like they've been marching in Kinshasa. A lot of young people, they really want to, but I think the military has just been not capable of
leading them.
They've never fought a war, and there's a lot of disorganized. And also the leadership in the military is wrong, because if they had a good leadership, then they would have had a strong military, strong army to be able to crush the rebellion. But unfortunately, they haven't been. Some people, maybe it was their first time even going to a front.
Yes.
And yeah, they just couldn't withstand the force of the rebellion. We welcome Lois. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We will be starting in a couple. We just give about 10 minutes after 6 to give people the opportunity to join us.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just, Lois, welcome. We're just having a little bit of a chat, like pre-meeting, kind of like chat.
You know, in my country, when you give somebody a task as hard as in my country, when you give somebody a hard task like you gave me, you know, right now here it's coming to 1 a.m. And so in my country, Joseph knows, you literally would have really to bring beer. And Sikoba, Joseph, you remember that, right?
Yep, I do.
You've got to bring beer, and you know, because you've given me a hard task to come at 1 a.m. So you owe me a drink, right?
I think I do. I do. Not only one, Theogene. To be honest, I feel really honored by you accepting our invitation, knowing the time you have. It's really a great pleasure to have you. But also, to me, it shows me the sense you have for your country and for the justice and for all the suffering of the people. I am pretty sure you are not doing it for yourself. You are doing it for other people. You are doing it for the Congolese people who can speak for themselves, who are dying in the camp. You are doing for everyone who is suffering for a long time. So we really appreciate you, Theogene. And there is no way.
It's my pleasure.
There is no way to say thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I have been doing this I've never had a moment of rest in my life, it seems. So I keep on doing it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let us do it for probably 6 p.m. and start our conversation. But if you feel anyway tired or having a break, we will be happy to do that. And,
I'm having coffee. I have too much coffee tonight.
Keep you awake, yeah. Yeah.
What is the weather like in New Zealand today?
We have hit by a storm now for the last 2 days, and the next 2 days it is raining from the last 24 hours. Yeah, but normally this is our summer.
Oh, it's summer. You know, on my bucket list, I've always wanted to visit. You know, I've visited since the RPF days to date. I have visited 39 countries in this world.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, I've never been to New Zealand and Australia. So I keep on saying that I would really wish to visit New Zealand and Australia. Hopefully it will happen in the future.
Yeah. Now, we get New Zealand is a beautiful country, and we have unfortunately sometimes people came in here as they have seen on the map, thinking it's a small country, and when they get, I wish I could have spent more time in New Zealand. It's so beautiful in terms of landscape, and we have some amazing people here. They are very very kind, especially to visitors or foreigners, and so it's we don't have there is not many population here. It's the New Zealand is the size of 10 times Rwanda, probably exactly 10 times Rwanda, and we have only 5 million people. So when you fly or when you drive, it's just all the way the bushes. So sometimes, and the biggest city, Auckland, have like a nearly 1.7. So the whole population really is in one city. So and it's so beautiful. And on most of that, New Zealand is a country without any harmful animal. So if you break your car, you can just sleep on the side of the road until the morning. So there is no snake, there is no grizzly bear, there is no coyotes or something like that. So it is a very, very safe country in both terms. Yeah. Now, please do. Put it on your bucket list, and we will be happy to welcome you and to be there for you anytime you would like to visit.
Yes. I wonder how long is the flight? How long is the flight from Washington to Auckland?
Please, don't ask about the flight, because I think it is 12 hours to Los Angeles, 12 to 13 hours from Los Angeles. Yeah.
So you add another 5 to Washington, D.C.
So I think
that's a total of 17 hours, actually.
Yeah, total 17 hours. Yeah, so it is quite a long. But I think there is some direct flight, I think, from New York and from Texas. I think you, but they are, I don't know if you can. I've never done the direct flight. Always I chop them off so that I can have a break.
That's a killing flight, yeah.
Yeah.
The weather here is not good today. All right, thank
you. But it's warm, right?
No, it's not good. It's raining today. It's raining. It's not a good weather
now,
here.
I think we are, it's not that cold. It's not that cold.
But it's pouring down. It hasn't stopped.
Yeah, we are still 23 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
All right. It is 6:01. Shall we start or give it a couple of minutes? 3 more minutes. And I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for joining today. And it's, Tupa, shall we start now or wait about 5 minutes?
Yeah, it's up to you who are on that side of the technician. As a technician, you just let us know when you want to start.
Okay. We just wait the 5 pass. Then I'll start the meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Thanks to everyone who's joining us. And we just give it another 3 minutes. We will be starting in 3 minutes. If you can just write in a group chat where you're joining us from so we can know. And we'll be able to interact with you as well. You have a chance to ask questions. And
I'm Lois, and I'm in Auckland. I'm a member of the Fabians, so it was through them. I think I heard you talk, didn't I?
Oh, yeah.
2 people that came to talk to us. I was interested in how your country is progressing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Lois. Anyone else?
Yeah, Joseph from New Zealand.
Yes, thank you. You'll be introduced shortly. All right, just 1 more minute. Yes, good to see everyone joining us again today on the conflict in the Congo. So in 1 more minute, we'll be starting the meeting. All right. So welcome to the New Zealand Fabian Society. Today, we'll be giving an update from the Rwanda and Congo conflict. My name is Radaswinga, and I am one of the moderators today. And I'm joined by Joseph Kimeni, who was with us in the last meeting, and Dr. Theogene, who will be one of our speakers today. And the recent attacks in the Congo by the Rwandan-backed militia has led to a worldwide condemnation of the Rwandan regime of Paul Kagame. Following up on the recent Fabian Zoom with Mikela and Dr. Maria Amoudian, Dr. Theogene Rudasingwa will give a complete picture of Kagame's regime and discuss the potential of a realistic solution to the conflict. Dr. Rudasingwa is a leading figure in the struggle for a genuine democracy in Rwanda, a former chief of staff to Rwandan President Paul Kagame, Dr. Rudasingwa lives in the US as an exile from the regime, known for its persistence in attacking and tracking down and attacking critics. Kagame is being credited for masterminding the recent attacks in the Congo, using an effective military force of the ex-UN peacekeepers and militias, with an eye on exploiting the Congo's mineral wealth. Dr. Rudasingwa notes, you can be in power and for long, but remain an impoverished, diminished, insecure, and blood-stained dictator who enforces rule by the bayonet, the bullet, and deception. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Theogene Rudasingwa.
Thank you. Is the floor mine right now?
Yes, the floor is yours. And Joseph, feel free to come in if you'd like to comment first or go after. Feel free.
Yeah, I can start probably.
Yes.
If you want, yeah. Theogene, thank you so much for joining us and accepting to talk to us today. And Red, thank you so much for accepting to be the moderator. So, Rudasingwa, I think you have had a big trajectory in your own personal life, if I can say that, because we will be able to understand the whole picture of what happened. So you left Rwanda as a toddler during 1959 when one of your parents was killed, and you went into refugee camp during the early years as a teenager. But you worked hard. You earned a degree in Makerere University in Uganda, and you became a doctor. And you earned also a degree in US and in diplomacy and law. So you are a hardworking person. And then you had a good job in US. But in the 90s, your Tutsis comrade launched an attack, wanting to come back to Rwanda. And you accepted to join them, living your good life in US, in offices and things like that. So you accepted to go into the bush. And so your organization, RPF, won the war after a bloody civil war. And you won the war, you became a government. So what was the first motive for you, Theogene, to accept to leave all those wealth and to go into the bush, going back to Rwanda? What was the motive?
Well, thank you very much, Joseph, and the moderator. Thank you for inviting me. When a friend of mine told me that somebody from New Zealand wanted to talk to me and to invite me to talk to something called the Fabian Society, at first I said, actually, what is the Fabian Society? You remember when we talked, I was asking you about that. And since we last talked, of course, I've schooled myself. I'm always interested in the trajectory of ideas and the history of ideas and organizations, because often it is in the ideas that we find the motives of organizations. So it's a pleasure and a privilege and an honor that you've invited me to talk to you about Rwanda and Congo, especially from a society that has always championed progressive change, first and foremost in the United Kingdom, But now in New Zealand, and I was talking to Paul, and he told me there is another chapter in Australia, although you might be a bit different, but of course there is a link. There is a link between all of you. But what interests me especially is championing progress through intellect, patience, and organized action. One thing that struck me was that, which I'm sure you very well know, the name Fabian comes from actually a Roman general, Fabius, I think, who said that you've got to have the patience until the right moment. Have patience until the right moment. But when the right moment comes, do not wait any longer. Otherwise, your struggle will be in vain and will be very futile. That actually caught my attention because both Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo are caught in that kind of moment. Is it the moment of patience, anticipating that something substantive is going to happen in the future? Or maybe we are not being attentive enough, the moment has come, and we are still waiting, and therefore likely to miss the opportunity. So those are the two things that caught my attention. The fact that the Fabian Society since the 1884, I think, has been on the forefront of promoting policy, promoting ideas that indeed have shaped the United Kingdom itself, but have also shaped other societies, including, I'm sure, New Zealand and Australia. And here we are, Africans also being interested in these kinds of ideas, in the hope that they can also help us in the future to shape our own societies. To come back, therefore, to your question, what is it that interested me in being part of that movement of going back home? Now, in 1990, I was part of that movement of the invasion. I was part of the invasion that came from Uganda into Rwanda, starting the civil war, pitting RPF, the Rwandese Patriotic Front, against the government of Rwanda of the day, of General Juvenal Habyarimana. Actually, maybe to correct you a bit, at that time I was not living in the United States. I was actually in Uganda. But I remember very vividly, I was going to work in the morning as a doctor. At the gate of the hospital, one of my colleagues told me, "Oh, have you heard?" I said, "What?" He said, "The boys have crossed into Rwanda." And I understood who the boys were. The boys were the Tutsi rebels, because remember, and I'll come back to that later, 1959 revolution had created, refugees, Tutsi refugees. Tutsis are one of the ethnic groups of Rwanda. I'm saying this not for the benefit of Joseph, but for the benefit, maybe my brother from Congo also understands it, but others who may be in the audience who may not be very familiar. But in Rwanda, we are Hutus, Tutsis, and another small group called Twas, although we don't often talk about them. And Rwanda had been ruled until 1959. Rwanda had been ruled by Tutsi kings for centuries. So it was the first, and was, of course, colonized by the Germans, and for a much longer time by the Belgians. So the end of the colonial era in the early 60s was preceded by what is called the Hutu Revolution, because that was the first time that the Hutus, as a majority, 80%, 90%, I don't know. And I normally do not even want to dwell on these percentages. I don't know who has ever gone to Rwanda, even currently, to say exactly how many, who are Hutu, how do you describe a Hutu, and then to go with pen and pencil and see who are the Hutus, who are the Tutsis, who are the Twas. But we generally, as the Europeans wrote, that the Hutus are the majority, maybe 80-something%, maybe 90, almost 90%. Tutsis maybe 10%, maybe, or less than 10%, and Twas less than 1%. To be honest, myself, I've never seen somebody, maybe Joseph has, but I've never seen a Twa. I have never. Only maybe because I've never lived in Rwanda much longer. I'm now 64. I turned 64 in Feb. And the only time I ever lived in Rwanda is a maximum of 8 years. So in short, for 56 years, I've lived outside Rwanda. The first part as a refugee, and then for the last 20 years since I lived in the United States, I've been living in exile. So in short, I've been a refugee all my life, almost all my life. So in 1990, that invasion was about the Tutsi refugees going back home. And life of a refugee always reminds you every day. It doesn't matter whether you've got money, you become a doctor, you become a lawyer, you have money, you don't have money. The equalizing thing that is always on the mind of a refugee is that you do not belong where you are. And I used to ask my mother when I was growing up. So I lost my father. In fact, I didn't come to live as a refugee in Burundi, in Tanzania, in Kenya, and in Uganda, where I lived for most of the years. We left Rwanda when I was only 1 year old. I was literally a baby. And my father was among the Tutsis who were killed at that time because of the violence that took place. And we were told, my mother told us, that actually my father, when he was killed, he was also crucified, like hung, on a tree. And so those things, as you grow up, keep on raising your consciousness. When you grow up, you start learning about Rwanda, books. I was studying medicine, but I always had time on the side to try to understand exactly why we are in Uganda. Why are we there? Why can't we go back? I used to ask my mother, and she, of course, she would labor to explain why we cannot go back. It was not safe for us. So that's why really I joined the RPF, which was an armed organization, an armed political organization. It had a political wing, it had a military wing, and I briefly worked as a doctor for the military units, treating the wounded, brothers and sisters who would be wounded on the battlefield. I was like a war doctor. And then at that point, early 1991, that's when I was asked to start moving out of Rwanda, where we held territory, to go to countries in Africa, to go to Europe, to come to the United Nations, to try and explain what is happening and how the world should pay attention to Rwanda and why they should help us to find a solution for Rwandese refugees, but at the same time help us to find a solution to end dictatorship in Rwanda, because all the conditions that create war and ultimately created genocide in 1994 were conditions that you see in any dictatorship. Because if you look around the world, whether it was Hitler's Germany or Cambodia, or Bosnia and Herzegovina, or Rwanda, or Darfur, or you go further to all the places where genocide has occurred, it has always occurred when there's a conflict, but also a conflict that is responding to a dictatorship, bad governance. So a country where there is bad governance, you can always be sure that it's one of the conditions that can easily create genocide. So genocide is not an African affair. It's not an African phenomenon. It's a phenomenon that occurs whenever societies are not paying enough attention to how they are governed. So to answer your question, Joseph, I had to leave everything I was doing simply because on a personal level, I wanted to go back home, but I was also responding to a society's need. And the society's needs were, number one, refugees who cannot go back home. And in that case, these were Tutsi refugees, and I'm a Tutsi, and I wasn't one of them. But as an intellectual, my longing was about also transforming a society. And that's why the things about the Fabian society interest me very much. Ever since I started reading a bit of that, they interest me because as an intellectual, even when we're fighting, I was always thinking, how do we link going back home to transforming our society? Because unless we transform our society to a well-governed society, Rwanda will always produce refugees, will always export refugees. And I was not wrong, because even now as we speak, of course, there are refugees from Rwanda. So that's how I would answer your question, Joseph.
Sorry, Joseph, you're mute. Can you please unmute yourself? Thank you, Doctor.
Oh, is it okay? Yeah. Yeah. After the civil war and your organization won the war, you had a top job in the country, and you shaped, really basically we can say that you shaped the policies, and you was part of the people who are making government policies, and especially internal and especially outside Rwanda, as he was the Rwandan envoy to US and one of the big countries. So you have carried out like the message your government wanted to send to the whole world. But unfortunately, it didn't last long. In 2004 or 5, I think, you slammed the door behind Kagame, leaving Kagame and his government, and you went again into exile. So your dream was stopped in a short time, and you have risked your life. You have done everything you could for a better society. So why again did you prefer to be in exile? What pushed you to not to stay in the country, as you have left a good job, put your risk in the bush? Everything could have happened. You have a family, but you have chosen to go to fight for the return to your homeland. So what went wrong for you to go back into exile?
That's Joseph. That's a very, very good question, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I'd spent a long time thinking about it at that time, because when I joined the RPF on the 1st of October 1990, as the invasion took place, I was a young man. I was in my 20s, and I was single. I didn't have any children at that time. And fast forward in 2004, I started plotting my exit out of Rwanda in 2004, but the actual departure took place in 2005. At that time, by that time, I already had a wife and I had 4 children. And so we're a big family. And so it's not easy to disengage, especially in a country where disengagement can easily be interpreted as a sign of not being loyal to the president. And this is not just another president. This president is Kagame, whose reputation I already knew because Kagame, before he became president, he had been in the Ugandan army. He had built a reputation of being a very violent man. During our own struggle from 1990 to 1994, it was very clear that Kagame wanted to have his way, and anybody whom he suspected was not loyal enough disappeared amongst the ranks of the military or amongst the politicians. And after getting into power, although in 96, I came to the United States as Rwanda's ambassador to United States, I was very familiar on how Kagame rules. And when I came back from United States in 2000 to become his director de cabinet, his chief of staff, I really came to understand Kagame's frame of mind, how he behaves, how he acts, and so many other data things that I didn't know in the past because I was mostly out of Rwanda doing diplomatic stuff. But I came to understand that while, for example, it's largely known that genocide was committed by the militias in Interahamwe and people in the security establishment and Habyarimana's top leadership in the party, MRND, what the most people didn't want to know, because RPF didn't want to say it, was that RPF was very responsible for many, many killings that took place within Rwanda. And later on, when there was Congo I war and Congo II war, so many people were killed, in addition to the Congolese people who died there. And so by the time I went to become his chief of staff, I already knew too much, a lot. And so there came a time when I want to call it a crisis of conscience, but because I'm also a Christian, I want to call it a spiritual crisis. Because on the one hand, I was probably at that time when I was his chief of staff or when I was ambassador, or before then when I was the secretary general of RPF, I was, other than Kagame, I was the most prominent person who always defended RPF. Whether it was bad things it was doing, they would tell me, you need to deal with that, even when I didn't have enough information. So, but I was quite able, I'm a good salesman. I was acting like a salesman. If you say, okay, sell this car or sell this telephone here, okay, I would go and sell it even when I didn't understand, I didn't have enough information. So by the time I became his chief of staff, I fully understood the gravity of the human rights abuses that RPF had committed in Rwanda and Congo. And number two, I was extremely worried about the direction that the country was taking. Because whereas, yes, most refugees, Tutsi refugees had come back into the country, but at least our agenda in the public was that we wanted refugees to come back, but we didn't want there ever again to be refugees. We wanted to unite the country, to have genuine reconciliation because our society had been ripped apart. We wanted to make sure that there is genuine democratization, respect for fundamental human rights, good neighborliness, all these things that we used to say when we were in the struggle, it's as if we had thrown them out of the window. And within the party, Kagame was running a one-party show. He would come to meetings and everything but that's another subject, because I don't think that we have enough time to discuss it tonight. And everybody would start clapping and everybody would say, "Oh, Your Excellency, we agree. Your Excellency, we agree." And there was something in me that was rebelling against that kind of tide, where a party becomes a rubber stamp for one man, where Kagame would say, "I want this done by the government." The cabinet becomes like a show. He comes and he takes a decision. Nobody is able to dissent or have another point of view. So I started believing that at one point there was Theogene, who on the one hand is a creature of government who has to defend it, whether it's doing right or wrong. And then there was me, Theogene, who I know very well does not stand for those types of things. So I had a spiritual crisis, and I had to resolve it, because each one of us in the audience, there comes a time when, if you've not faced it, I can assure you there's going to be a time in your life when you find that kind of choice to make, that kind of conscience crisis, that kind of spiritual crisis, where you are going to either do the thing which the majority want you to continue to do, because that's the comfort zone, or choose the narrow path. I wrote 2 days ago, I wrote 3 days ago maybe, a tribute to my colleague who was recently died in jail. Joseph knows him, Frank Rusagara.
Yep.
For no good reason other than that in 2014, I think, he was accused of supporting the organization which I founded, the Rwandan National Congress. I'm no longer in Rwandan National Congress, but I'm the one who founded it. Just to keep alive the idea that Rwanda needs a transformation. It's as basic as that. And he was sentenced 21 years in jail. I too was sentenced 24 years in jail. I do carry a sentence of 24 years in jail. They even sent extradition papers to United States, but of course, the United States knows it's a politically motivated kind. I was tried in absentia and sentenced 24. If I was to go back to Rwanda, or if I was kidnapped somewhere, like they kidnapped my friend Paul Rusesabagina some time back, I would go and spend 24 years in jail in Rwanda. And so I reached a point where I say, in my tribute about Rusagara, I said, each one of us has either to follow the narrow path, it's taken from the Bible, or the wider path. And I chose the narrow path. The narrow path is the one where you got to go out of the comfort zone, but do the right thing. Do the right thing that your heart tells you is the right thing. And the right thing for me in Rwanda is to do things that are in the interest of the majority of the Rwandan people. And the right thing for me is that I belong to that region called East and Central Africa. And I consider Congolese people as my brothers and sisters. I cannot look the other way that it doesn't concern me because that's Congo. Or help Kagame to go and exploit the Congolese gold and coltan and diamonds. I can be as rich as Kagame. If I had wanted, probably, other than Kagame, I would be the richest person in Rwanda. Because I was a gatekeeper. My last job in Rwanda for Kagame, I was his gatekeeper. Nobody saw Kagame unless he passed through me. So in my language, Joseph knows, they call it kwivana amata mu kanwa. If you have milk in your mouth, you don't take it out of your mouth. But I decided to take the milk out of my mouth because I listened to my heart. So, Joseph, I decided to take the risk and go to exile. And even if I spend all my life in exile, preaching the gospel of reconciliation, of democratization, of the rights of the people, of unity with our brothers in the region, unity with Africans, so be it. That's what I will do. I'm very comfortable doing that as long as it takes.
Well, thank you so much, Theogene. It makes a little bit clear for us. You talked about is
Joseph,
can you hear me?
Something?
Oh, yeah.
No, you are quiet.
Yes, sorry for that. Yeah, so you talked about the genocide, and I think that is the word always when we talk about Rwanda. We talk about guerrilla, genocide, Tutsi, and Hutu. That's probably the most word we always hear every day. But genocide, talking about human cost, it is worldwide accepted that the shooting down of the plane carrying Hutu Habyarimana president and the Burundian counterpart Ntaryamira were the trigger of the genocide. Ça devient des échos. Tu bloques everything.
Joseph, I cannot hear you.
Yeah. And can you put Red? Can you put?
Yes. Would you like me to jump in just to give a little bit of?
To mute Daniel probably.
Daniel, oh yes. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, muted.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So so we know, and the whole world knows, that the shooting down of the plane carrying President Habyarimana and the Burundian is the trigger of the genocide. And Theogene, yourself, you have testified in a different investigation, the Spanish, the French, in the documentary BBC, and you have wrote a piece of paper of that you believe Kagame, the current president of Rwanda, is the one who ordered the shooting down of that plane. And if so, he must bear some responsibility into the genocide. Are you still believing that? Is your testimony still current?
Oh, very much so. Well, very much so. That's my testimony, and it's based on the truth. And I say it not lightly. I said because Rwanda cannot overcome unless it goes through a process of truth and reconciliation. Forget about what you hear in Rwanda that before our colleagues came in this meeting, you and me were talking, and I was telling you, and you also shared the same view, that Rwanda is very unique in a sense that, unlike many other African countries, we are just Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa, only 3 ethnic groups. And we have even anthropologists who taught us how to think about ethnic groups and whatever. Sometimes I wonder how they even call us ethnic groups when we speak the same language, we lived on the same hills, and there have been intermarriages, and there's no Hutu land and Tutsi land. And yet, with time, progressively, we have been frozen into these ethnic identities. And because injustice periodically has been targeting a particular ethnic group, and because victims in one era can be one ethnic group and perpetrators in another era, you know, when I became ambassador here in the United States, sometimes Americans want a very simple way of defining things. So congressmen and senior leaders would ask me, so who are the good guys, the Hutus or the Tutsis? And to simplify, at that time, that's how my frame of mind was immediately after the genocide. So I would say, yes, the bad guys are the Hutu. And then they would say, who are the good guys? I said, the Tutsis are the good guys. So they would ask me, where do you belong? I would say, yeah, I'm among the good guys. But as the history of Rwanda is very convoluted. We have all these similarities. We have all these things that should otherwise unite us. But when power is captured in the name of one group, like the Hutus in the Hutu Revolution of 1959, when they came to power, the elite called themselves defending the rights of the Hutus. Even for us, when we took over power in 1994, we're saying we're Tutsis coming back home, and the government, although we didn't say it that way, we had a language of saying we are nationalists, but beneath that script, we're saying we are here to defend the Tutsis against genocide again. As you know, that's, if you read anything from Rwanda, even when genocide initially was general, because Hutus also died, progressively it has become Tutsis, genocide against Tutsi. So when injustice is perpetrated against a group, the group that captures power then says, we're here to defend this group. Just as the Hutus who came into power in 1959 were kind of responding to the long centuries-old grievances perpetrated against the Hutus as a majority, then these identities become very rigid. They become very rigid. So why I insist in telling the truth, therefore, including the truth was responsible for shooting down the plane. You know, before the French got interested in carrying out investigation, we used to call it a public secret amongst the RPF. Everybody knew that we had shot down the plane. Even if you went and asked the soldier, wrote down, like my escorts, I had military escorts. If you ask them, the night it happened, when I was not even in Rwanda at that time, I was in Uganda. I went back home. I had it on BBC. The following day, I flew from I drove from Kampala to Murindi, which was our northern headquarters. And my escorts, my military escorts, were so excited. They say, "Sir, do you know, we've done it, we've done it." And you know, Ichinani, Habyarimana was called Ichinani. Yeah. There was a nickname amongst us. He was called Ichinani. And then the soldiers, the military guys, my very junior, very young people, who were excited, telling me how we had done it. It was later when it became a big issue that now we had to go out and say the extremist Hutu, which was true also, who were angry that there was going to be a government of national unity, to which we would be a part, that they had shot down the plane to kill Habyarimana because he had been Dar es Salaam, and he had accepted to form a government of national unity. But that was rubbish. That was nonsense. That was not true. It was a trigger, but that does not erase the fact that the extremists within Habyarimana's camp, the people in his party, people in his security institutions, people in the militia, had been for a long time preparing for something like that. And the fact that all these things started happening hill by hill, Rwanda is often called the land of 1,000 hills. So there's not a single hill in Rwanda that was not touched. But not only were Tutsis killed, as many Hutus were killed as well. So I insist on this truth and reconciliation because it is the only pathway to healing. Now, post-1994, post-genocide, the problem is that whereas the genocide against Tutsi has been thoroughly investigated through the International Criminal Tribunal, through the local jurisdictions, which you've had, community Gacaca, even not a single crime committed by RPF in Rwanda, and later on, of course, in Congo, even though later on there was the mapping report that talked about all these crimes that RPF has committed in Congo against Congolese people and against Hutu in Congo, including the issue of the plane itself. None of this, even though the International Criminal Tribunal had a mandate to look into this, none of that has happened. And so when you have that kind of widespread injustice, and you simply, and the other thing I must say, if you know, now we are now in April. April is Remembrance Time in Rwanda. And all of us, me who is talking, or Joseph who is there, I don't know whether you've ever asked him, but for me, I cannot even count how many people I lost in my extended family. I don't know how many. There are so many. So we remember. But no Hutu in Rwanda can actually remember their own family members who are killed by RPF. It's a taboo. It cannot happen. It has never happened. It is something that RPF has stubbornly refused to do. And yet, on the other side, it claims there has been reconciliation. The only way reconciliation takes place is when you put yourself in the shoes of the other, and that is based on letting the truth come out. Even when the South African Truth and Reconciliation, there are so many Truth and Reconciliation commissions all over the world. Even when it is imperfect, but at least they tried to say exactly what happened. And in Rwanda, Rwanda deserves a chance for there to be on every hill where people have been killed, for people to talk and say, this is what happened, so and so, lost so and so, and to acknowledge that these crimes were committed and allow people to remember. The question that I always ask any person from RPF, say, why wouldn't you allow the Hutus to remember their own brothers and sisters, their own fathers, their own mothers, their own relatives, their own friends? Why wouldn't you allow it if you are genuinely interested in truth and reconciliation? So yes, Joseph, the one thing I stand on, and I will still stand on to the end of my life, is that truth and reconciliation that can bring about healing. I'm a physician.
Yeah.
I'm a physician, principally. So I think about the importance of truth and reconciliation in the process of national healing, the healing of families, the healing of individuals, and the healing of, indeed, of a nation. Because Rwanda has gone from one generation to the next generation, suffering from trauma, and yet we have not even acknowledged that trauma. And it's very, very difficult to achieve reconciliation and healing unless you are able to tell the whole truth. So I still stand by what I've said.
Yeah, I think we have a long way to go for a genuine reconciliation between Rwandan people. But leaving Rwanda aside, Since 1996, Rwanda have waged the war in the Congo. Then in 1998, 2000, and still now, Kagame is still fighting in the Congo.
Joseph, before you ask your question, can I just welcome everyone who've just joined us halfway?
Okay, yeah.
Welcome to the New Zealand Fabian Society. Today on the discussion on update on Rwanda and Congo's conflict. So just for a background story, around November last year, Paul Kagame, Rwanda sent about 4,000 troops, which crossed the border into the Congo, in the eastern part of the Congo, bolstering the M23 rebel military capability, and they have now, earlier this year, they occupied the city of Goma and killing about 2,000 people, and now they've taken the city of Bukavu. And that's a bit of the background, and we'll also be giving you an update on the impact that it's had right now on the people. So before Joseph asks the question, and there's about 28 million people who are facing acute food insecurity, 4.5 million children under 5 requiring nutrition treatment, and approximately $399 million needed for the services there to continue providing the operations up to August 2025. So there's more also on that conflict, and if you'd like also to know about the implication of Rwanda in Congo, you can look at the mapping report. The UN mapping report clearly highlights the atrocities and the massacre that was caused by the Rwandan military. So thank you, welcome, and prepare also your questions. We are lucky to have Dr. Theogene, who's here, the former chief of staff of Paul Kagame, and we are excited for this. So welcome and join us. Thank you. It's yours, Joseph. You can ask the question on Congo.
If there is anyone wanting to ask a question, you will let us know. Red.
Yes.
Yeah. So the question is going back to Congo. It's not just today. Paul Kagame have launched the war from 1996, subsequent wars. And as you mentioned, there has been so many casualties of civilians, over a million. And the mapping report have talked about the possible genocide in the Congo by Kagame. So my question was to Theogene, why is it accepted that when Putin invaded the Ukraine, there was 100,000 condemnation, but when Kagame invaded the Congo, there is hardly any condemnation by international community. Why does he get the impunity? And can you tell us what do you think and why the main reason Kagame is invading Congo and why he doesn't get any condemnation?
Yeah, the first invasion of Congo took place when I was actually Rwanda's ambassador to the United States. And that was preceded by Kagame's visit. He came here to the United States. We went to the Pentagon to meet the military leaders. We went to State Department. And later on, we went to the United Nations. At that time, the way RPF argued, our government argued, the government of Rwanda argued, was that when the previous government was defeated militarily by our forces, in 1994, when we took over on July 4th, actually, to be specific, 1994, when we became the government of Rwanda, Rwanda was literally almost an empty country. Almost half of the population had gone to Zaire. Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo was then known as Zaire. And another million, there was about 3 million, over 3 million in Zaire. about another million in Tanzania. That's about 4 million. But Rwanda at that time had a population of about 7 million. If you put in the factor that it's claimed that almost 1 million had been killed, the remaining people in Rwanda had been displaced. So at one point in 1994, Rwanda's population, the larger part of Rwanda's population had been thrown out, had gone out, and those who had remained were displaced, and of course, a big number had been killed. That is the situation we inherited in 1994. And the government that had been defeated, they encouraged people actually to run away from RPF, to run away from Rwanda. It was like they were holding people hostage. They wanted to make sure that RPF, yes, has won a military victory, but they are running an empty country. That I'm sure that was their strategy. But it was also true that the people were running away from the killings that RPF was carrying out in areas where they had captured until they took over the whole country. So when Kagame came here, we were trying to explain to the United States government that the camps which were built along the border with Zaire, which is now Democratic Republic of Congo, were a source of insecurity, and we are not going to accept it. That's really the message that Kagame was giving when he came here in 1996. And indeed, when he went back to Rwanda, that's when the first invasion took place. So when the camps were disbanded by our forces, by Rwanda's forces, that was when also the human rights abuses started multiplying, committed by Rwanda's forces. So they were closing the camps at the same time killing people. And then they forced the majority of the people to come back into Rwanda. The ones from Tanzania had come back. And then those who didn't come back to Rwanda were going deeper into Congo. They pursued them. They pursued them and killed them and killed them and killed them along the way as they fled from the border. That's subsequently, that's what the mapping report of 2010 trying to document. It's those killing that Rwanda's army committed as they were pursuing the refugees. At some point, Kagame realized that because Mobutu's the structure of dictatorships are such that they're like what do they call it? It's like a house built on sand. And Mobutu's dictatorship was that kind of house built on sand because he had been propped up by the West during the Cold War, but he really did not have control over the whole country. So Kagame realized when this invasion took place that, why should we actually stop halfway when wherever we go, we succeed, the army does not fight? And so that's when the Kabila comes into the picture. A rebellion like M23 was created, the FDL, Kabila, and then they went all the way and captured Kinshasa, and the rest is history because Mobutu finally fled the country and he died in exile. I think he died in Mobutu. A house built on sand, because every dictatorship is a house built on sand. It doesn't matter how long, ultimately it collapses with very grave consequences, that consume a lot of lives. So that was the first Congo War. But during that period of time, I think that's when Kagame and his military officers realized that Congo was extremely rich. They realized that overnight you could have diamonds, you could have gold, you could have quota, you could have all these things and get millions and millions of dollars. And soon there were foreigners, Western companies that were also interested in all these minerals. And Kagame and his military could position themselves as middlemen who could actually allow these Western companies to come and exploit. So he also became middleman. So that's when the appetite for Congo's natural wealth began. That's when it began. And of course, that triggered the Second Congo War. The Second Congo War was about Kabila started, and Congolese people genuinely started saying, but yes, you helped us. You helped us to capture power. We have a new country. We have even given it a new name, Democratic Republic of Congo, not Zaire. But please also allow us to take care of our own country. So when Laurent Kabila articulated that aspiration, which is a genuine, patriotic, and national aspiration for any citizen of any country, then that angered Kagame and James Kabarebe, and they started the second Congo War. And the Second Congo War ended when so-called Kagame decided to withdraw Rwanda's army, but he had to do that because Zimbabwe had come into the picture to support Congo. Angola had come into the picture, and Namibia had come into the picture to support Congo. And Kagame could not realize his ambition to continue ruling Congo from Kinshasa. So that's when now he starts creating all these proxy forces. Since that time, Kagame decided that maybe it's not strategic or even possible to go all the way and rule from Kinshasa, that maybe he should destabilize Congo by having these proxy forces like M23 and others before it, that would allow him to continue getting the natural wealth of Congo, while at the same time avoiding the pressure from the international community and the condemnation and so on and so forth. But this time, in this latest conflict, Kagame seems to have decided that he wants, even when there is pressure, he wants to continue because Rwanda has become a major exporter of minerals that it does not have, and minerals that they get from Congo. It's a main exporter of gold, a main exporter of coltan, and all that. So he is in Congo essentially to get the wealth, and Kagame has become extremely rich. When we arrived in Kigali in 1994, all of us were poor people, where we didn't have money. But Kagame now has become extremely rich. He's one of the richest presidents in Africa, certainly one of the richest in the world. And there's no way he can let go Congo, because Congo is his lifeline. And I think people need to understand that. He's willing to sacrifice as many Rwandans as possible because the war costs also many lives of Rwandans, but he doesn't care. And of course, war has devastating consequences on Congo. As you said in the humanitarian picture, how many people displaced, how many people killed since the 1990s. The estimate is over 6 million people. There are so many millions displaced and so many millions dying in Congo today. So the consequences for Congo are certainly devastating. But Kagame knows that in Congo there's wealth, and is willing to do everything possible to remain there. But the additional thing I should mention before I allow you to give back people to ask questions is that even when I was still working with him in the inner circle, what people call the kitchen cabinet, Kagame used to say that Kivu used to be part of Rwanda in the olden times, the Greater Rwanda idea, that Kivu is used to be part of Rwanda. And of course, the that is completely untrue. There has never been a time in history when Kivu was part of Rwanda. And so he entertains that idea of Greater Rwanda, but the Greater Rwanda idea is to support his economic interests because he desperately wants Kivu. He wants to maintain Kivu by all means. Whether he goes right now as we speak, the update is that, of course, they captured Goma, they captured Bukavu, they have gone as far as Walikale. I think since yesterday they have captured Minembwe, the high plateau overlooking Bujumbura in Burundi. And so people are asking, does Kagame now want to go as far as Kinshasa, or will he stop in Kisangani? One thing is very clear, he wants to kill the Kivus. Whether he wants to go for regime change as far as Kinshasa and remove Tshisekedi, that will depend on how far the resistance is within Congo to resist that. And I think there is a significant resistance, although of course the Congolese army is weak. And those who claim to support it from South Africa and from Tanzania, SADC, are extremely weak. And Kagame was able to dislodge them from Goma and Bukavu. So it depends on what will happen. But one thing is very clear, Kagame desperately wants Kivu. And he's now gauging to see, will the international community push back, put enough pressure on him to stop there? So far, yes, there has been pressure. There's been talk of some sanctions of individuals. But so far, the pressure is still very weak. And Kagame is gauging. If he sees that it remains lukewarm like that, he will continue and press ahead. But if it was to become substantive, and then there would be, the Congolese people would also try to resist, I think there's a possibility that he may cut down his losses and try something else. But he wants money. He really wants the money, so he will keep on fighting.
Oh, yes. Red, anyone wanting to ask a question?
I'm not sure. I'll just state it. Welcome to everyone who've just joined us to the New Zealand Fabian Society Zoom meeting on the Republic Democratic of Congo and Rwanda's conflict. I am Red, and I'm the moderator for today. I'm originally from the Republic of the Congo, and I'm joined by Joseph Kimieni from Rwanda and Dr. Theogene, who's the former chief of staff of the current president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. So if you have any questions, please just raise your hand or write it in a group chat, and we'll be able to give you the opportunity to ask the question. Yes, thank you. At this moment, we don't have any question written yet, but can everyone see the message I just sent in a group chat regarding the questions? Anyone? All right, we don't have any question at the moment.
Yep.
So, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Red. Just one question to Rudasingwa is, as you have a diplomatic experiences, recently the Belgium has been spearheading sanction in European against Paul Kagame, and Paul Kagame reacted by cutting diplomatic ties with Belgium. Is like an erratic decision by President Paul Kagame, or as you've been into Rwandan politics, is it like the parliament institution or government decision, or is just Paul Kagame decision to show to cut tie with Belgium? And do you think it is a good move to cut tie in abruptly picking the Belgian diplomat from Rwanda?
No, it's never, you see, That's something that people need to understand. Kagame runs a one-man show in Rwanda. Yes, there is a parliament. Yes, there is a cabinet. Yes, there are ministries, and there is the judiciary. But as somebody who worked very close to him, all those it's a facade. You know, it's like a house, and in front you put there a facade that looks the way you want people to see. But Kagame runs a show to the extent that, let me tell you one example. You remember President Bizimungu, a Hutu, who was the first president after we came into power. So when we came into power in 1994, Bizimungu, a Hutu within RPF, was the president, and Kagame was the vice president and the minister of defense. But everybody knew that actually the one who held power was not the president, it was the vice president. Everybody knew within the ranks in the country, even visiting dignitaries, people who would come to visit, if they left Rwanda without meeting Kagame, they would say their mission was not successful. So everybody wanted to talk to him because they knew that's where the power is. So he runs that kind of show. Now, on matters of waging war, whether it was the first Congo War or the second Congo War, or these wars, the recent ones of M23, Kagame never goes to parliament, never goes to the cabinet and say, oh, tomorrow we would like to send. And by the way, my colleague Raid said 4,000. That was at the beginning. Right now, actually, Rwanda maintains no less than 2 divisions. In other words, more than 10,000 members of the special forces who are operating in the Congo. So essentially, it's those forces that are fighting. The militia M23 is a facade, like the facade Kagame runs in Rwanda. So it's the same with on diplomacy. So on every front, on the judiciary, I forgot. I wanted to end to highlight that. So at some point in 2000, Kagame wanted the job of president. You know, he was tired of being vice president and running the show from behind. He wanted to have the real thing to become the president. So at one point, he sent me to see the Procureur General, the Attorney General, who at that time was my own brother, my elder brother, Gerald Gahima. He sent me to see Gahima, and I went there. I met the chief of police, Frank Mugamba, whom Joseph, you know, and the instructions were they should find a way of arresting President Bizimungu and putting him in jail. That he had, of course, he had removed him. He was a former president, but he accused him of trying to set up another organization, of trying to foment whatever. So President Bizimungu was put in jail and was sentenced, and the judges would have to wait for somebody in the intelligence to call them when the court is in session, to tell them how many years, sir, are we going to give him? How many years in jail are we going to give him? He would be the one to tell him. So Kagame is the judge. Kagame is the one who launches war without telling cabinet or without telling the parliament. Kagame is the one who you know, even in my own case, I was put in jail in 2005, although he got me out soon, and I had to go and negotiate with him. I negotiated with him, then he dropped charges, and he, you know, and so on the question of diplomacy, then he doesn't consult anybody. You remember, he reacted in the same way with the French. His problem with the French for a long time was that the French had an investigation on the plane crash. the one that you mentioned about, you asked about, that triggered the genocide. And it always made him uneasy because he knew that if there was a thorough investigation, it would, and was truthful and fair, it would find out that he's the one who gave the orders to shoot down the plane. So he was very, very much against the French. And he one time threw out the ambassador, he reacted like that. So that's how he's reacting against the Belgians. It's because of the sanctions, because the sanctions are intended to stop him from being in the Congo, and yet in the Congo, that's where he gets his livelihood. Just as the investigation on the plane crash would have called him a criminal, would have found out that he's a criminal, and therefore there would be accountability for that. So as for stopping diplomatic relations with Belgium, that is the most stupid thing that any country could do under the circumstances. He stopped cooperation, that he doesn't need it. Yes, Kagame as an individual is a very rich man, he doesn't need it, but the cooperation is useful for, even if it's for a few people, but it's useful for the population. And number two, Belgium is influential in the European Union. Diplomatically, Belgium is influential at the United Nations. So he may call it, they call it all sorts of names, you know, the small, useful, useless country that created the problems in Rwanda, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that those are the actions of a desperate person. Those are not the actions of a statesman.
Well, we still have a long way until Kagame is stubborn and to get rid of the mineral of the Congo. The war is still, will be still going on forever until the Congolese government or army just can get up and set up themselves to fight back. Otherwise, it has been 30 years of fighting. Million and million people have lost life. And yeah, so no one can predict the end. So and when I went back to the history, I reminded me that in 1938, Hitler was saying that in Austria, there are people speaking German, so I have to go to protect them. And today, we hear Kagame saying that there is people speaking Rwandan language in Congo. I have to go to protect them. So history is repeating to itself, and we have some people like that. So when really or as an individual or everyone, what can we do to wake up really the international community to lessen up the suffering of the Congo, and also to stop those kind of interference? People have left just Hitler to invade Austria and Poland and things like that, and it became a World War I, but we don't learn lesson. What can we do, Theogene, in your opinion, as you have been into politics and diplomacy for a long time? As a normal citizen in New Zealand, what can we do?
What we can do is, I was trying to educate myself about the Fabian Society, and it has a very good slogan: educate, agitate, organize. Those are the three things that I saw that the Fabian Society, since its inception, has been pushing: educate, agitate, organize. And I think first and foremost, three things on that issue. I honestly believe that unless the Rwandan people organize themselves to resist Kagame, it will even be very difficult for the Congolese people on their own to resist and defeat Kagame in Congo. because the question of Rwanda is very much linked with the question of Congo. The Kagame sees his actions in Congo as an extension of his rule in Rwanda. And so that's where the problem begins. The problem begins in Rwanda. The roots of the problems are in Rwanda because Kagame runs a dictatorship in Rwanda. I've been trying to make that point, I think, since 2010. It's now almost 1.5 decades. I've been trying to make that case in the world of diplomacy and amongst the Rwandan people to see the connection between what Kagame does in Congo and what he does against the Rwandese people. So within Rwanda, we have a responsibility to educate Rwandans about the consequences of Kagame's rule within Rwanda. But now that we're talking about the conflict in Congo, we have to talk to Congolese people as well to show how Kagame's actions in Congo have their roots within Rwanda itself, on how Kagame rules within Rwanda. So the question of education is very important. Now, why is education very important? If you see how Kagame tries to explain that the problem in Congo, number one, he says he's going there to defend the Kinyarwanda speaking people. But that's not even true. He's not telling the truth. Kagame actually believes he's going in Congo to defend Tutsi, because there are so many Kinyarwanda speaking people in Congo, but the majority are actually Hutu. Do you really honestly believe, does anybody honestly believe that Kagame is in the Congo to defend the Hutu, whom he has killed in Rwanda, whom he has killed in Congo, and who in Rwanda today, the Hutu who live in Rwanda live like second-class citizens. You own, whether you are an elite or you are a businessman or an ordinary Hutu, you know your position. You are supposed to be silent, to keep quiet, because Kagame has painted a brush of guilt against all the Hutu. He says they committed genocide. They even say it publicly that the sons and daughters of Hutus carried the sin of their fathers and mothers. They say it in public. And as I said before, the Hutus cannot remember their own people who've been killed by the RPF. So Kagame says he's in Congo to defend the Tutsis. But what is happening to Tutsis within Rwanda itself? Tutsis like me, I'm here, I carry almost a death sentence. He sentenced me to 24 years in jail, and he has gone the extra mile to hunt me down, to try to assassinate me. And so many were talking before, if you are Tutsi in Rwanda, you better be very careful, because Kagame is extremely vicious towards Tutsis, especially those whom he thinks are not loyal enough. But as for Hutu, he knows how to, he has killed so many of them, and those who have survived have learned to, if you're in Rwanda, to keep low. If you're outside Rwanda, you also keep quiet, because if you raise your voice, you will say you're a genocidaire. You are responsible for genocide. So he's not in Congo to support Kinyarwanda speaking people. He's not even there to support the Tutsis, to defend Tutsis, because he thinks like he's the king of the Tutsis wherever they are in the world, the diasporic state. That's how they call it. That is, they defend the Tutsis wherever they are, and he's not there to fight FDLR. That's what he claims, is there to fight FDLR. That when they come back to Rwanda, you Tutsis, you are in trouble, because he's going to finish off those who've remained. That's rubbish. That's not true. And so when he therefore says he's there for those types of things, he's not telling the truth. But the point I wanted to make is that we have to educate Rwandan people and the Congolese people to make sure that they understand, because recently my wife and I were in a restaurant in our neighborhood, and a young girl who is a server in the restaurant came across. He says, "Where are you from?" We said, I told her that I'm from Rwanda and my wife is from Uganda. And then she said, "Are you Tutsi or you're Hutu?" I said, "Actually, I'm Tutsi." Then she said, "I'm sorry to ask you that question, but my friends don't like Tutsis." I said, "Why? Why don't they like Tutsis?" My friends, Congolese, they don't like Tutsis. He said, "Don't you see what Kagame's people are doing in Congo?" I said, "I'm glad you said, Kagame and his, what Kagame and his army are doing in Congo. But not all of us Tutsis are like Kagame. I'm certainly not like Kagame." And I said, Kagame has a clique of Tutsis with whom he runs that business of invading other countries and looting other countries. But the majority of the Tutsis are not with him in that kind of enterprise. So I think it's very, very important for us. And I do correspond with a lot of Congolese people. They see what I've been writing since 2010. So they write to me, we go back and forth. And I always detect that thing of saying, but the Hima-Tutsi Empire, Kagame is building a Hima-Tutsi Empire, and Museveni is building a Hima-Tutsi Empire. I say that's their wishful thinking. Number one, even if that was their wish, it's not possible in this day and age to build an empire. Number two, how many Tutsis and Himas are there in this world? How many? Suppose we say that even notwithstanding that there was genocide and maybe 500,000, 1 million Tutsis died, the Himas in Uganda are even much less. So how do you build an empire? An empire is built, number one, on economic power, on military power, and on an ideology. So even Hitler tried, but he failed miserably. I'm glad you gave that example. Even Hitler tried, and he had a lot of power. He failed. So I think it's very important for people in Rwanda and Congo to be very clear about what is at stake, to identify Kagame as a dictator who runs a clique that is trying to live off the resources of Congo, but in the process causing a lot of harm to Rwandans and the Congolese people. So that is the education part. The second part is to agitate. We need to be very active. I think the most important weapon in the hands of dictators is the silence of the people. The big problem I find amongst the Rwandan people, if especially intellectuals, the elite, is that they don't want to speak out. They don't want to speak out. There is no agitation. There is no, amongst the Rwandans, people prefer to hide in their small corners as Hutus, and another group hiding in a small corner as Tutsis. They don't want to talk to each other. When they talk about the past. But the past, however painful it is to us, it's only important if we can draw enough lessons to build the future. The future is like an empty slate, a piece of paper on which there is nothing written, and we can either decide to write the future together, or we can simply remain slaves to our own past and remain in the pain of the past and remain slaves of the past. But for the future, it's something that we can create together. And I think that's also one of the things about the Fabian society. I read somewhere where they say that what did they say? That the future is not something that is there to march into, but the future is something that you can create together. I think that's something I read from the Fabian society. And so agitation, we need to agitate. And I think right now the Congolese people are actually doing the right things. They are better than the Rwandese. The Congolese people are agitating and we are not. And number 3 is organization, how to organize, because a lot of noise itself cannot remove Kagame. I do not think that the current way of the way the East Africa is behaving, I don't think that will remove Kagame or SADC. People, when SADC came into the picture, the southern community wanted to come and help South Africa and Tanzania. It won't help. So there's need for people to organize, people to people, especially Rwandans and the Congolese people, to try to organize, to see how we can resist together.
Yeah.
We need to agitate within East Africa and agitate on the world stage. Like an effort like this one, I think, can be a vehicle to expand the awareness, but also to expand the people-to-people contact in that process of resistance. So once again, educate, agitate, and organize.
Thank you, Theogene. I think we have like a 5-7 minutes to let you go. We really thank you so much. I've got one question. As you say, we need to educate and agitate and work on those kind of things. But we have some contradicting, really, information coming out of Rwanda. In 2022, the World Happiness Report indicates that Rwanda was ranked 143rd out of 146 countries. That is really the bottom of the happiness. Rwandans are unhappy, very unhappy. And I remember in 2014 on the BBC documentary, you said that Rwanda is like a volcano and it is a matter of when, not if I remember that. So knowing that like 99% of the people are unhappy and the society of Rwanda have been divided now into 3 categories. We have the Tutsi elite who are living in the lavish houses and swimming pool in Kigali with Paul Kagame. And we have the Tutsi survivors who are unhappy and uneasy because they do believe Kagame is using the genocide for his own benefit, not for them. And we have the Hutus, majority, if we can say majority, we agree that all, according to the propaganda, Kagame propaganda, that all the Hutu are criminal. Even Paul Kagame, president, have said himself that all the Hutu, regardless when they are born, they have to ask forgiveness to any Tutsis. So, so how do you see the Rwandan society of tomorrow, and what can we do again just to make awareness of that kind of disparities of the uneasy society that the Rwanda is labeling us that we have a street clean, we have blah, 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 but it's an unhappy society.
Yeah, that was actually I would encourage if you come across it, you can share it with our colleagues who are in this meeting and others. That was actually the point we were making. In 2010, I led my colleagues, Jared Gahima, the late Patrick Karegeya, and Nyamwasa. But I was the lead author of Rwanda Briefing, which you remember. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
In Rwanda Briefing, that was the argument that we're making. It was like this myself, I was indeed once the Secretary General and then Ambassador and then Chief of Staff of the President. My brother Gerald Gahima was the Attorney General. Patrick Karegeya was the Chief of Intelligence. He was assassinated in South Africa by Kagame's agents in 2013. And Nyamwasa was the Chief of Staff of the military. And the argument we were trying to make was that unless Kagame makes corrective measures, the consequences are going to be that there could be another genocide. And this time, even from a selfish point of view, if you put on the heart of being a Tutsi, that this time, actually Tutsis could be wiped out. That was the first argument we were trying to make in this Rwanda briefing. And of course, Kagame's response was to try all the four in absentia. He gave me 24 years. He gave my brother, I think, 21. I think he gave Nyamwasa 24 years, and the late Patrick Karegeya, he gave him 20 years or 21 years. I don't remember. Anyway, he's dead. He was killed by Kagame's agents in South Africa. And so the consequences of running Rwanda like the way Kagame is running it, based on saying we suffered genocide as Tutsis, and therefore we can do whatever we want, especially we can run this country on the basis of violence only, and violence monopolized by the Tutsi clique around him. Because remember, Rwanda's army is like no other army in that part of the world. Rwanda's army is run exclusively by Tutsi, 100%. Yes, when you go, of course, if you go to look at the men, what we call men, the ordinary soldiers, yes, you'll find the majority are Hutu. But the army, the entire army of Rwanda is run 100%, and intelligence, all the and the police are run by Tutsis 100%. You cannot find a Hutu running that institution at that kind of level. Yes, you might find a Minister of Defense like now, who is a Hutu, but he's a Minister of Defense who runs nothing. Yes. And so that idea that you, as a minority, now there is that minority clique I'm talking about that is at the top. But we Tutsis are also, from what I told you, we are also an ethnic minority. So the perception amongst people in Rwanda and in the region is that this harm that is being caused to Congolese people, being caused to people in Rwanda, the Hutu, being caused even in Burundi, because Burundi has the same ethnic mix, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa in the same proportions, and you can see the hostility of Kagame towards Burundi. In fact, right now, the president of Burundi thinks that Kagame is planning an invasion into Burundi. So when you have that kind of perception in these countries and in the region, what will happen when this whole thing explodes? The whole region, are people now going to descend on the Tutsis, and this time to become the final solution, or what? I don't know. Or, when provoked, will Kagame now extend what the mapping report said, acts of genocide? In the mapping report, will it now be in reaction? Because remember, even the Habyarimana regime, the militia and the senior leaders of the military, whatever they did, they thought that would prevent IPF from coming into power, Tutsis from coming into power. That's how, one of the things why they thought they were preventing us from coming into power. Of course, that didn't succeed. Even when Kagame feels that his back is against the wall, if there comes a time when probably the region organizes and they push him, Congo pushes him, or maybe other international events take place, and the West maybe abandon him and they push him. Kagame is an extremely violent person that in the worst case scenario, he can descend on the Hutu population and kill even millions. He wouldn't hesitate. So one of the dangers why, and this keeps me awake, and that's one of the reasons why I'm talking to you past 1 a.m. It's past 2 a.m. here. This is part of, I'm like a Fabian. I'm a Fabian also now. I'm trying to tell the world that Kagame is an extremely violent person who will expose Tutsis to violence from other non-Tutsi populations, which are the majority in our region and even in our country. And number two, when he pushed to the wall, he will behave like Hitler again. He will kill as many Hutus as possible. He will kill many Congolese as possible. He will kill many Burundians or many Ugandans. That's what the stakes are. And people need to understand that. Before the genocide of 1994, I was there in Washington in 1993. I've recently, because I go back to what I was saying way back in 1993, I came across a press statement I wrote in 1993, in February 1993, and I used the term genocide. I told the State Department, please help us. There's going to be genocide in Rwanda. I even don't know where I got that word from. I was always surprised. So even now, the world is very distracted by other things taking place. United States, the war in Ukraine, war in Gaza, this and that, exploitation of natural resources. But the danger is that the world is asleep, and Kagame is going to cause damage that we have not even seen as yet in Rwanda and in the region, unless we all fold our shirts, educate, agitate, and organize to make sure that we stop Kagame in the tracks. Short of that, we are going to face very serious consequences.
Well, Red, I think we have to let Theogene. We would like to have him for the whole day, but it is 1 a.m. on his time, nearly 2 o'clock.
No, it's not 1 a.m. It's coming to 3 a.m.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
But now I have taken too much coffee. Yeah. I wonder whether I will even be able to sleep.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Red, do you have any question?
Yes, I'll just try to ask the audience if there's any question in the audience. Please raise your hand or write it in a group chat before we conclude the meeting. If there's no question, then I will be asking my question.
Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you so much, Dr. Theogene, for the insight and your expertise and experience as well. I just have one question regarding the conflict now in the Congo and Rwanda's implication, and what can the Congolese do in order to step at this very moment? Because I'm a firm believer that economic sanctions sometimes do not work. It depends on the types of sanction. There's enough evidence to suggest that, and globally in the world, the economic sanction do not reach out the goal of either deterring or reversing the course of an action, like a conflict from a dictator perspective or an authoritarian leader. But we've seen that work in 2012 when President Obama became president in the US, when they imposed sanctions on Rwanda. And the rebel M23 at the time, they were also they were under a different name, but they also launched an attack in the eastern part And after the sanction, Europe and United States, which targeted the aid, and that actually worked because Rwanda, the rebel, were actually retreated, and Rwanda retrieved the rebel. So that's only in that context, an African context, that it worked then. What can the Congolese do right now to deter or to stop Paul Kagame in his ambition in the Republic of the Congo, Democratic of the Congo, considering the fact that he's already gotten a foothold and the mineral and natural resources, which is economically benefiting Rwanda at the moment? What can they do, or what can the Congolese leadership or government actually do? Thank you.
What I think in the first instance, I think first of all, Congolese people have been doing the right things on the diplomatic front. I think never before, all these years since the 1990s, has the Congolese government stood up to Kagame internationally with much force, consistency, as they have done under President Tshisekedi. I've really been amazed, especially under the current Minister of Foreign Affairs, the lady who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. They have done really, in a way, they have scored a diplomatic goal against Kagame. And I think Kagame underestimated the Congolese government, he's called all sorts of names to Tshisekedi. He's called him an idiot. He recently said that, he was just selling pizzas and he wasn't even successful in that, and that he wasn't elected. You can imagine Kagame, who says he's elected 99.9%, laughing at Tshisekedi that he wasn't elected. But I think Tshisekedi and his government has generally been very, very consistent on the diplomatic front, and they have scored very, very well. And I would really imagine that if they continue on that path, they're on the right path. I think they have, Tshisekedi's government has two problems. One is political in nature, the other is military. Militarily, Congolese army is very weak. And I think, on the other hand, you need to see it in its origins, because Congo's army has never been strong. Congo's army, Mobutu's, from the colonial army, Force Publique, I think that's what it was called, and then you end up with Mobutu's army. This you couldn't say that Mobutu's army was. It was like his army, and the army was never strong as such. And then from the 90s, the army that came into being was something that Kabarebe was trying to. The patchwork was trying to be under Kabila. So that was not a national army, because the national army is much more than numbers and weapons you can have. It's having a very good leadership, cohesive, professional, and then leading an army that knows that it's under the responsibility of protecting the sovereignty of the nation and protecting everyone within the nation. And so that takes time to build. But of course, Kagame knows that's why since the 1990s, Congo has not had any breathing space to be able to do it, because it's as if Congolese army has always been facing one rebellion after another. One rebellion after another. It has not had time to organize itself to create that kind of strength, and above all, to have the kind of leadership that can lead the army to defend itself and prevent the likes of intruders like Kagame, and of course once in a while Uganda. We haven't talked about Uganda, and so on the military side it's still weak. The idea that you can see that they have tried bringing in the East African community, and Kagame made sure that the East African community fails because he wanted them to simply leave. And Kagame has now got a lot of money. And he was able to bribe even some military within the East African force. Kagame has got a lot of money these days. He's even able to bribe African presidents. That I know for sure. I have information, and I know what I used to do when I was his chief of staff and his special envoy to places. So he has a lot of money to obstruct any effective fighting force that would be designed to make sure that he's defeated on the ground. He has made sure that he has undermined SADC, both in Mozambique. Remember, he undermined SADC in Mozambique, but in Congo, it's been shameful, and I've written about that. I'm on record saying it. It's shameful that SADC, especially South Africa and Tanzania, would behave the way they behaved in Goma and Bukavu, and of course, that is very, very clear. And of course, the United Nations force. If you asked me, I would. That's one thing where I actually agree with Kagame. What is the United Nations doing in Congo? What on earth are they doing in Congo, other than consuming $30 billion over the last 20 years? And they cannot defend Congolese people. The people who are being displaced, the people who are being killed, people who need to be supported. What is the United Nations doing in Congo? So militarily, therefore, it boils down to this. I think Tshisekedi should be able to translate his diplomatic success into finding how to strengthen the Congolese army. Intensive mobilization, intensive training, but above all, strengthening the leadership of the military. Because the only way you're going to stop Kagame from exploiting the natural resources is throwing him out of Congo. And there's no way you're going to throw him out of Congo. It simply means you're going to fight him.
Yes,
that's all. Bottom line, you've got to fight. So Tshisekedi has to mobilize the diplomatic world, mobilize resources. It may take time. Kagame may even remain in Kivu, stealing whatever he's able to steal for quite some time, because you cannot build a strong institution overnight, or even build a strong leadership overnight. But that is something that's doable. Congo has resources, and so he can prioritize that and build a strong army, mobilize, but above all, mobilize people to resist Kagame. Number two, the weakness on the political front is that I get the impression, correct me if I'm wrong, you understand better maybe Congo than myself. It's as if the political class in Congo is not together to fight together, to defeat Kagame first, and then sort out their problems later. Because when you have a national crisis, you are in crisis management mode. If my house here is on fire, there are certain things I have to set aside. The quarrels I've been having with my wife, the quarrels I have with my children. When the fire breaks out, we stop all that. Everybody tries to put down the fire. So sometimes I read things from DRC. I don't get that kind of impression that, yes, you may not like Tshisekedi. Yes, he may not be doing the kind of things that you would like him to do. But I think national unity is so crucial at this point if Kagame is going to be defeated. And that can only happen, although I heard about it, I haven't followed to see whether there was any evolution on that front, but there needs to be some kind of government of national unity, where all these senior people who have fought Tshisekedi politically, who didn't win elections or who think Tshisekedi stole their election. But if there could be a way of putting them together and then supporting the military to fight and win that war. So in short, I would advise the government of Congo to continue fighting diplomatically because they have scored very high against Kagame. I think now they have to do everything possible to strengthen their army, to mobilize people, and then to politically to figure out how they can fight together as one entity in a national unity government to defeat Kagame. And I think it's something doable.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I think those 2 points are key, and we take that and we pass it on. We come to the end of this meeting, and there's been an attempt to a national unity government. Unfortunately, it's not been successful at the moment. So, and the first point that you shared is to kick Kagame out. So that's the first point. We'll take that on and we'll be sharing it to others. And the second is the national unity government. I think there has to be a unity in order to fight this. So we thank you so much. We are at the end of this meeting. We thank you for your time. Just before we give you time for your last remark, we'd like to thank every member of the Fabian Society who joined today, and the faithful who also stay, and those who also left due to other commitments. And if this is your first time today here, this is the Fabian Society, and you'll be receiving also an update and on emails on what the Fabian Society is up to, upcoming events. But also we want to inform you that we'll be having more of these discussions in the coming month regarding Congo and Rwanda. So it's been a huge privilege here today to have Dr. Theogene and share his insight and knowledge and his experience. But we look forward to having you again, because I don't think everyone had the opportunity to hear you today. Maybe we'll have you again another time so people can have the chance to hear you. So if you're new, welcome to the Fabian Society. And we'll be looking forward also to engaging with you here today. I'm just a moderator. And I'm originally from the Republic of Congo, so it's been a pleasure for me to moderate this meeting. And I'm joined by Joseph Kimeni, who's also of Rwanda. He's an activist. He's been vocal on the Rwandan issues and also stand against the current violation of Rwanda into the Congo. So, Dr. Theogene, if you'd just like to leave us with your closing remarks for today. And before we close this meeting, I'll just also say that usually we do a karakia. We have in New Zealand, we have a culture of opening a meeting with a karakia. Karakia is a Maori word which means prayer, and also we close with a karakia, which means prayer. But we didn't get the opportunity to do it today, but hopefully next time. So if you can just leave us with your closing remarks regarding this meeting and anything that you like anyone else there to know as well. And I hope some people from the Congolese community and also all around the world and here were able to hear those 2 points, that what the Congolese government or the Congolese people should do to have long-lasting peace and security in the eastern part of Congo.
No, simply to echo the Fabian Society's motto: educate, agitate, and organize. And I would add there the Pan-Africanism motto. It says, organize, do not agonize. So when in a way, combining the Fabian Society's motto and the Pan-African movement's motto, organize, do not agonize, I love them very much. But to my fellow brothers and sisters in Congo, I want to sincerely encourage them not to lose hope. Not to lose hope, because the people, Kagame would like Congolese people to lose hope. And when we lose hope, we lose actually the essence of living. And I think that is the same instrument that Kagame uses in Congo that he uses in Rwanda. He wants Rwandan people to be hopeless. He wants Congolese people to be hopeless. And we cannot accept that. We have to be hopeful about the future, and that this future, we can build it together. Number two, we have to resist fear. Kagame, by being an extremely violent man and waging war like the way he's waging it in Congo and killing as many people, capturing cities and he wants to create the impression that he should be a feared man. He used to tell us in this narrow group of Tutsis, including myself, that he doesn't need people to love him, that he wants people to fear him. And so I would encourage people not to, my fellow Congolese people and Rwandan people, to resist fear, and especially the fear to speak out. The fear, because the most important weapon that each one of us carries is our mind and our ability to articulate what we find wrong in our own societies. Now, if you cannot be the sole custodian, to be the custodian of your mind and have the independence to speak out, then Kagame has won, and we cannot accept that. And so we must be hopeful, and we must overcome our fear. If we are a hopeful people, and the people who are not intimidated by Kagame's violence, and people who have overcome fear, yes, Kagame is going to kill some people, but he cannot kill 100 million Congolese people. He cannot, he's not capable of killing 100 million Congolese people, nor can he kill 14 million people. And so, yes, struggle is about sacrifice. Yes, some people will die. But I'm 100% sure that if we can remain hopeful and overcome our fear, educate ourselves about our mutual interests, agitate, organize, I'm sure it's a question of time. Kagame always says that it's a question of time his enemies are going to die. It's also a question of time Kagame is not going to be in power forever. And it's going to be his time too. And it all depends on the power of the Congolese people and the power of Rwandan people to make that happen. And it's a question of time that will happen. That's my message.
Thank you so much, Dr. Theogene, for joining us from the United States. It's 8:04, and this meeting comes to an end. Thank you so much, all members, and thanks to the Fabian Society. And we look forward to having you here next time. Have a good night. Kia ora.
Have a good night. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Theogene. Thank you.
Thank you.